Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to the JRC here in a moment, but first the disclaimers and the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are going to be there in the description box. We have Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject. We have Neuroclastic's article, the very same article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center threatened a defamation lawsuit against them for, where they surveyed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. The JRC said if they didn't remove it from the website, that would serve them. Well, so far, that has not happened, and Neuroclastic refused anyway. So please, folks, read that article, share it on all your social media. Also, we have Neuroclastic's GoFundMe linked in there as well, because unlike the JRC, we don't have weird, shady connections to unlimited funding and unlimited money. Just in case they ever do actually see through with their threat. To our trigger warnings, folks, when we talk about places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, Agape Boarding School, and all the multitude of places just like them, you are going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please utilize your headphones. Also, folks, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and watching, parental supervision is very much advised. Also, because in the disability rights communities, neurodiverse communities, and pretty much every single community I find myself a long-time member of, we're getting hit on all sides. So, not only are we going to be reopening the little mini-series I did in regards to Medicaid and funding, we are also going to do a deep dive in where I begin to explain to you all Social Security income and what that also means to disabled people, and exactly the kind of special level poverty it's going to sink a whole lot of disabled people to if they do put the cuts forward. But we're also going to be talking about something a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to SSI, Social Security Supplemental Income, and Medicaid in regards to being able to continue to receive services. You're only allowed to have a very small amount of money, which would be impossible to live out here in the real world on and actually be able to survive. So there are problems with the current system, that is no doubt. But we got Elon Musk, to use his own metaphor, going into these cuts with a chainsaw, when there's actual real improvements that can be made within the system, as well as opening up the service system to alternative forms of funding so that Medicaid and supplemental security income stop being the only gateway into the service system. And that way, once you do get into the service system and get your services, if you do get a job and begin to succeed, they don't rip necessary services away from you. So we're going to be definitely getting into more of that as well. But that's why we're going to be doing a whole bunch of front loads again, so that way I'll have them ready in the queue so we can go ahead and start branching out to other subjects. Because let's face it, with our current political climate right now, it's 100% necessary, because we are dealing with individuals who are messing around with things they do not have a single hope to be able to understand. So, just want to let you guys know that. We're going to go back to where we were the other day, and probably like yesterday, we're going to cut this smaller paragraph in half too, because one can only tolerate so much JRC stupid in a day. Where we left off the other day. I do want to mention that JRC, in spite of all evidence that has been presented to them to show the contrary, continue to insist and stamp their foots like toddlers in a middle of throwing a temper tantrum. That this is the only way. This is the only way. This is the only way, that this is the only thing that works. If you are so desperate and continue to say the same thing over and over and over that loudly, it's because you're trying to shout everyone else down. Problem is, the neurodivergent movement, disability rights movement, people like myself, organizations like People First, ASAN, Neuroclastic, Adapt, we're very good with getting loud. Okay? The JRC really doesn't like it that much. And we all do tend to get very deep underneath their skin. Not because of what we are. If it was just us disabled folks, they would try to railroad us. But the fact of the matter is, over time, we have developed internal networks that include professionals in the field, myself included, as well as being someone who has lived within the service system. So they continue to get more petulant and more childlike every single year. And you know they're getting ready to sweat those cuts, because the JRC is not going to be excluded from those federal cuts. They are going to start feeling some of the pain that all the rest of us out here in the real world have been feeling. I hope you like it, JRC. I hope you like it, you evil bastards. I did say I use profanity, and I've got a vindictive streak a mile wide, and I am what I would like to call dangerously overprotective when it comes to you all are my folks. And I have no problem going to war at the drop of a hat whenever my folks are threatened. It's what I do. I also do so when there is other misjustices in the world, but you get where I'm going. Before I go into left field like yesterday, let's start the new paragraph. Brace yourself for stupid. Rather than engaging with the fact that this subpopulation of patients will have no effective treatment available to them if the FDA bans the ESDs, and properly analyzing this fact as a part of its statutory required risk-benefit analysis, FDA merely deflects. They're going to make me tap the sign again. JRC. What part of the math is not mathing that you're not understanding here? Okay? Even as a subpopulation, that still means, no matter how small the number is, that their subpopulation is not solely housed at the JRC. They are a part of other different parts of the service system in all 50 states, as well as the service system and medical models in countries all over the world. Okay? All over the world. Now, with that being the case, I remember I've worked in this field, and yes, some of my consumers exhibited the exact type of behaviors that the JRC continues to constantly punch down our throats every single time they get a chance. Dangerous situations, bars on the windows, protective restraints, pads, Hell, I've seen football helmets and the protective gear with said helmets to keep them from hurting themselves, okay? I have worked with that subpopulation. You do not have the sole only members of that subpopulation as your students at JRC. To even try to act like that is the case at all is just absolutely stupid. Okay? So, JRC, and I've seen you acknowledge it in some other areas, that this small subpopulation that you have designated worthy of torture doesn't just exist inside the JRC. There should be a follow-up question that nobody in the media ever actually asks. So I'm going to ask it. Okay, say there is a subpopulation that even the full functional behavioral assessment can't help. Notice how much I don't believe that. Because after over 20 years, I have never come across a single case where every single type of program within the service system failed. I have come across situations, very, very troubling and stressful situations, where it took long periods of time before we were able to find the right program to address the specific triggers to best assist the child. That time period is incredibly scary. I've had situations where there's been attempted suicides or parents who've gotten very, very hurt in altercations with said kids. I'm not a closed-hearted moron. I've worked with those kids. I've worked with those parents, teachers, case managers, social workers, doctors. You get what I'm saying here, right? Good. In those very stressful situations, sometimes the most common and well-known programs don't always work. What you do is what I like to call tweaking. Now, what is tweaking? In my experience, what that generally looks like is an individual that's not under any particular regular type of standard program. It takes little cobbled bits of each different program to address a specific need or a specific trigger that going into a full program won't necessarily address. So what that looks like is, in this area, we have a little bit of person-centered planning going on, as well as making sure the circle of support is firm and ready to go. But we also have a little bit of positive behavioral reinforcement, or even, when it calls for it, vocal negative reinforcement. It usually ends up being a couple of different things. Okay? It takes time to develop. That time is scary. And if you don't think I felt the stress to need to hurry up before something horrific happened, you bet your ass I did. There were nights I went to bed in tears, completely stuck. Okay? But that's why we need more focus on individualized care more than your typical standards. Sometimes the standards work. Person-centered planning was brilliant for me. And down the road, as I've needed supplementation with proper medication, since I keep a very active, constant line of contact between me and my doctors, that has also worked well as well. But some of us are a little different. So we take the time, even as scary and stressful as it is, the level of restraint you have to use to not just cobble something together real quickly because you're scared of the outcome is immense. But the proper programs, especially when you need to cobble it because the usual standards are not working, needs to be taken in order so that you can get it right. Guess what, JRC? It's worked. Now that's just my experience. Let's talk a little bit more about this subpopulation that you continue to hammer on constantly. Again with the math not mathing. That means as small as that subpopulation is, you're going to have members of said subpopulation all over the globe. Correct? I mean, that's basic math. Even if it's within the 1 percentile, you're still going to have those people here and there, right? So why hasn't there been wild stories we've been hearing about those individuals of that subpopulation just completely destroying their communities and raising havoc? Because that's the kind of language that you use, JRC. You paint these individuals as folks who are completely and utterly out of their mind, out of control. As though they could put down an entire city block all by their lonesome with your fear-mongering. If that were the actual reality of what was going on, and I'm not saying what does go on in those families aren't extremely serious, you bet your ass there are. But the JRC blows everything way the fuck out of proportion. Okay? What I have noticed, because I do read case and clinical studies, is that what they tend to do is exactly what we've done over here. Where they take little bits of what works from each of the different programs to address a specific thing. And over long periods of time, when it's done correctly, they do indeed get better. And their behaviors occur at far lower frequencies, a little less and a little less each year, as they become more accustomed to their customized treatment program. Okay? So once again, the math isn't mathing. And you continuing to do this, like, worst attempt at a guilt trip I've ever seen before. I mean, but you don't use that to measure risk and benefit analysis and did that. Please, for the love of God, shut up. We're tired. Address the challenges that have been put up to you for over the last 40 years, JRC. Why do you not require a full functional behavioral assessment to be conducted? before you go and try to get these kids into your schools. I don't want word salad. I don't want you to copy and paste the same testimonials that you have been using for over the last 20 years. I want you to answer the damn question. Why are you not requiring, before accepting a student into your program, for a full functional behavioral assessment to be conducted first? If you were actually a decent, state-of-the-art, right on the cutting edge school and residential program like you pretend to be, then you would be a champion of that assessment being done. Because, as we know, not all programs fit all behavioral issues. And that assessment could help show whether that student would be a good fit for the school or not. So, continuing to say nothing else works while continuing to ignore that question, again, makes you more resemble a 3-year-old throwing a temper tantrum than it does making you look like you have any expertise within this field whatsoever. Okay? Answer the question. No hyperbole, no word salad, no copy and paste. Answer the goddamn question. Number 2, JRC. Why is your math always not mathing? Because you go on and on and on and on, subpopulation. Nothing else works. Nothing else works. Nothing else works. Da, 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 da. Okay. Is the JRC the only place where this special subpopulation is accepted in regards to a program? I'll answer that for you. No. No, it is not. Because it can't be. Because even if you're talking about a 1 percentile here, the millions and millions of neurodivergents, folks with mental health issues, with ADHD, and other comorbid conditions, you're gonna have them in other countries and in other states. Correct? Exactly. So with that being the case, why is it that we're not hearing about this special subpopulation from all these other sovereign countries all over the world who are absolutely resistant to any and all forms of treatment except for when violence is inflicted upon them? Where are those at? Now, I have seen studies done on subpopulations where they are resistant to most of the modern type of treatment form platforms. Therefore, the program needs to be more customized in regards to said subpopulation to find what works and what doesn't from a few different programs to best assist with their direct triggers. And it has been, although a very slow and extremely painful and scary process, I've seen it work in front of my own eyes, as well as seeing reports in regards to that out in Japan, in South Korea, and out in the UK. I don't have links to that, I'll be honest right now, so I'm just going to say the words allegedly. I will have to dig that up at some point, which there's so much in my cloud. There's over 20 years of shit in my internet cloud. We'll get to that eventually. But yes, answer the question about the subpopulation JRC. Because even if it's just a 1 percentile, if other countries and other states are treating those who have a resistance to more of the standard of care, but seem to do well if the treatment program is instead customized, taking bits here and there that seem to best help them depending on the trigger, then why aren't we hearing more about these folks saying, well, nothing works, nothing works, nothing works, and going down into despair? Because that's not reality, folks. That is not the reality. And I don't care how many times they pound their chest like a goddamn gorilla and scream at us that there is no other way. This is the only thing that works. And if the FDA takes it away, it might as well be the FDA committing murder, because I am done with the gaslighting, ignorant pseudoscience nonsense. I've had it all day here. And not just with them either. It is open season for me on all anti-vaxxers. I intend to fight, and I intend to hit hard. And yes, those are going to be mini-series coming as well to the channel. Yeah. Math isn't mathing, JRC. Like normal. Alright? Now, we're going to close on that, because remember, I can only take so much stupid in a taking here. And I'll be back with you all a few minutes once I purge my head once more from their stupid and bad math and complete, absolute lack of common sense or logic. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to utilize the comments. I, of course, do appreciate your time. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do hope you have a good one. I'll see you all in a little bit. Bye, everyone.